Hello, everybody. Welcome to Craft Beer Professionals Panel Fest. We're doing the topic from Beer and Beyond, diversifying beverage offerings from the Brewhouse. We have a collection of folks here from different segments that hopefully bring some exciting information and good discussion about the topic. I'm Don Marcel. I'm with Lotus Beverage Alliance, Stout Tanks and Kettles, and I'm here to moderate along with my colleague Doug Beatty, who is our technical service manager. I'm going to go around real quick and let everyone else introduce themselves a little bit and their brewery or their meadery in this case as well, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your brewery and some of the different beverages that you're involved in. I guess we'll start with Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Cootie. I'm with Alacrity Brewing, and we do contract and co-packing of beer, seltzer, kombucha, eventually distilled spirits and wine.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Paul, do you want to, just because you guys are both associated, go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Paul Medina here at Alacrity Brewing. I'm one of the founders, and we do all the things Phil said we do.
All right. I guess Matt, looks like Traven may have had a moment where internet went out. So if you could take over.
Sure. Matt Raymond with Etowah Meadery, Dahlonega Brewery. So we are a brewery doing the classic beer styles, as well as a meadery, which is making honey wine. So we do it co-location. We provide taproom, also distribution. We can self-distribute on the mead side. We have a distributor on the beer side, everything from light pilsners to stouts, all different kinds of beer styles. On the mead side, we do sparkling meads and also traditional meads.
Nice. Traven, you're up.
Hey, Traven with the Ouachitas or Ouachita Brewing. We initially started as a traditional coffee house and roaster about 5 years ago. We've had the brewery up and going for about 3. We were initially a dry county brewery, which was super fun, but we've got all that fixed now. Just built out our new brewery, which is in a separate location. About to start canning, getting more in distro. We do everything from coffees, waters, teas, lemonades, beers, you name it. If we can get our hands on it and do it, we do.
Excellent. Thank you, Traven. So what we're seeing here is a lot of breweries that are getting involved in multiple segments of the craft beverage market as beer continues to have a slight constriction, and we have a new generation of drinkers that come in and are looking for different flavors, looking for more exciting new beverages that they can experiment with. It's important to have these offerings in order to hit various segments of the market. So with each one of you, I think I would like to go real quick through, maybe find out if this was always part of the plan, or if this is something that you, how it started, where you got involved in more than just beer, and kind of go from there. So I'll do the same order that we had before. If you want to start up, Phil, that'd be great.
Sure. My background is on the brewing side. I had my own company, started in 2012 as a contract brewer. We didn't have our own facility, so I knew that side of the equation. In 2016, I came on board at Speakeasy Ales and Lagers in San Francisco about a year after it was purchased from Hunters Point Brewery, and they had plans of keeping the Speakeasy side as a production legacy brand, and the Hunters Point brand was where I got to do more innovation and one-off beers that would be micro-distributed and available only in the tasting room. And it's a brewery that is about 75,000 barrels, 90,000 barrels of capacity. And so they needed to try to maximize that. So they brought on a bunch of contract brands. And my experience of dealing with, at one point, My original company had about 9 contract partners, so I knew that world pretty well. They had me recruit and bring in clients to help maximize the capacity here. About in the May of this year, Alacrity took over with a new business model of not only continuing the brewing side of it, but bringing in some of the hard kombucha, the non-alc kombucha, seltzers, spike tonics. Eventually, as I mentioned in the introductions, we're going to venture into RTDs, so we need the distilling side license, and then possibly natural wines. And interestingly, this past week, our California legislature passed a bill that is allowing breweries to produce ciders now. So they used to only be available to wineries in California, but as of January 1st in 24, we're going to be able to have no issues doing fruit ciders.
Excellent. That's great news.
You said spiked beverages.
Yes.
What does that entail?
So it's just like a lot of things. It's marketing. It's not like as a brewery without a distilling license, we are not allowed to have hard alcohol blended into a beverage. The client that essentially is just a name. A spike tonic is essentially a hard seltzer that is their whole business model is using organic flavors and the presentation. And so on the label, they just chose spike tonics.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to keep this moving here. Paul, do you have anything you want to add in there real quick? Or?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, when Alacrity started, we started with the idea of just doing kombucha, just hard alcohol kombucha, and the word spread so fast. We didn't have any marketing going. It was just word of mouth, and we were getting phone calls for just some very wild, off the cuff, products that all were in the same realm of that they're using bacteria or these things that traditional clean breweries are not the biggest fans of. And so when we started getting a lot of those phone calls, that's where the idea really came from of expanding beyond just one product type, like a beer or a kombucha, or even just the two of those, and opening it up to kind of be a contractor co-packing facility that's open to all, right? And finding a way to actually have that work, because that's the real challenge.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Matt, do you want to pop in? Which came first, the Meadery or the brewery?
It was a business choice. We tried the original founder 6 years ago tried to do both at the same time, but we're in Georgia, and the state of Georgia is a little bit backwards, and we could only get one of the licenses. So we got our farm winery license first. So the mead came first, and the business plan was to always have the brewery, but it took Georgia 2 extra years to write the laws to allow us to co-locate a brewery and a meadery in the same spot. So we use the same equipment for both of those products. We're about half and half on the sales of the beer and the mead side. But because we're a meadery, we can put a lot of honey in our beer. We take the fruit that we make from the mead and put that into beer. So we've got grape skins on the beer, or I'm sorry, blueberry skins and peach beer that we can do. And we can kind of cross back and forth, making a braggot, for example, is one of the things. And so we're trying to get into what we're seeing is that the lighter, maybe younger generation likes the beer light. They don't like the heavy beers. So we'll probably get into seltzer soon. That's on there. But one of our biggest sales is the sparkling meads. They're lightly carbonated, about 5% alcohol. We are located on the Georgia Wine Highway. So we get a lot of people from the big city in Atlanta or out of state, a lot of Florida travelers and things that want to try mead. So a lot of times it's presenting the mead to them and also having the beer available at the same location. So kind of got the best of both worlds, as well as nobody's left out. There's always something that somebody likes. Some people don't like beer, some people don't like mead. So we've got both of them on tap. and it's worked out pretty well.
Excellent. So a little diversity there for the crowd.
Correct.
Especially when you have mixed groups. So great. Thank you, Matt. Traven, coffee. You said that initially you were Dry County. So how did all this start? And maybe I might have lost Traven there for a second.
It looks frozen.
Yeah, I think he's been having some real tough thunderstorms out there. So what we might do is just continue on, and I might circle back to certain moments. So, all right. Well, that kind of talks about the plan as far as where some of these ideas of multiple beverages has started. It seems like there's been a lot of positives that I'm hearing from all of you about brand image and customer reactions, but direct feedback from the customers. Do you have any that you'd like to share about that?
I'll go. I mean, we've had a lot of people that have never heard of mead, and so that's one of the first questions we ask is that, are you familiar with it? A lot of times people will be, I have no idea, and we have to tell them it's just fermented honey. And then they like, is it too sweet? Like, no, we have sweet, we have dry. We kind of have to walk them through because they're not really familiar with the mead product itself. On the beer side, a lot of it's just, training, teaching them what kind of beer styles are available. A lot of it just ask what's in their beer cooler at home, and we've got something that usually matches them.
Yeah. Excellent. While I have Traven, we're going to go back to kind of the origins of the brewery. And you said that at one point you were Dry County. You got involved in coffee. What was the plan there?
Yeah, we initially we opened as a just full coffee shop, coffee roaster, did traditional lattes, teas, espresso, things like that. And then a bill got introduced in Arkansas that allowed microbreweries in a Dry County as a private club, restaurant, microbrewery. So we just kind of jumped all over that and ran with it. And we had the space at the time, so we're like, yeah, let's do it. This will be great. And we built out a 30 tap wall, added a kitchen on, eventually got that up and going after some fun loopholes and things. Then we kind of outgrew that space, added a new one. Now we do large batch cold brews, beers, hard lemonades. We got a few people that come in and some locals that brew meads and stuff at home that come in and do larger batches on the 7-barrel system with us. We've just kind of slowly expanded and rolled into it. Just now we're just got our cans and canning line, fixing to start doing canned water, canned cold brew, several of our beers. We already do like large batch, like cold lattes and things like that eventually will roll into cans and stuff. But it just kind of worked out, at the right time, and everything worked with us. So it's been fun and learning process for sure. 'Cause I knew the beer side of it but the coffee side, I had to learn how to roast coffee, but also like pulling traditional espresso shots on our slayers and things, and, making lattes and having them good and the same every time. And that's been, the biggest part of our deal is trying to do the most consistent and elevated we can in every food and beverage that we do, and trying to bring something excellent and something different to our area. 'Cause we're the closest brewery or really coffee shop to us is about an hour and a half in any direction you go. So we're kind of out by ourselves.
It's nice to have a footprint there.
Yeah.
So you just got the canning line. Is everything that you've been selling up until now just on premise, or do you distribute draft anywhere?
Our first few years was just on premise. But once we finally got the county to go wet, we've been distributing for about a year now. With the distributor. So we've got, I think, close to 100 tap handles around the state now. And we just picked up part of Oklahoma as well. So it's just been draft currently, and we're hoping to roll out 6-packs and things like that starting in, the next week or two.
Awesome. Does that include coffee? Are you doing just kegs of cold brew too?
We've done kegs of cold brew and done nitro systems, but we're going to be doing canned cold brew also and stuff like that. And then eventually potentially looking into like the canned like lattes and things like that, just seeing kind of where we can go and what we can get away with.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I think going around again, a quick questions, just you have your initial equipment. What extra equipment did you need to get in order to do some of these? I know we have our standard brewing equipment that is universal for a lot of breweries or for a lot of beverages. Sorry, mead. Obviously, you can use a lot of beer equipment. In cider, you can use a lot of beer equipment. What other equipment has popped up that perhaps came from these specialty craft beverages that you're doing? Phil?
Not necessarily any new equipment other than one major purchase, which was a tunnel pasteurizer. But the equipment, the beverages that we are currently teed up to do have not required us to get any more equipment. It's pretty symbiotic with the traditional brewery. Where you might need to pay attention to, as Paul alluded to earlier, with the microbes and different bacteria that could be going through here, is we have 2 canning lines. But we currently only have one kegging machine. So we're looking at another keg washing machine, and for more of the microbe stuff, doing more gravity fills as opposed to using the semi-automatic system. And then eventually with the distilling and possibly wine license, that will take on a little bit more equipment depending on how far down the rabbit hole we go. Are we going to actually get a still? Are we just going to be doing more of the rectifying with, bringing in bulk spirits that our clients have selected and barrel aging them to what they want to do, and then blending them into their RTDs. So we'll cross that bridge in 24.
All right. Excellent. So tunnel pasteurizer, I could see that as being a very important part of the equation if you can't control the entirety of the cold chain as you're going along, and just have that safety measure. I've seen products that have gone into cans that, if they weren't pasteurized, would turn them into a little grenade. So very important to have some safety there. And excellent. Thanks for sharing. Matt,
all right. So since we're on that subject, we do the bath pasteurizations. We haven't had the space nor the inclination to do the tunnel pasteurizer. So right away, I'm jealous on that one. So we actually dump into a hot tank. We'll use the hot liquor tank to bring it up to the right temperature. We have the probe to make sure it got the right pasteurization units. So just by default, we've been doing that for all of the beer and the mead that we can. So we're canning a bunch on a nice little canner for us, and then pasteurizing that afterwards. And it works for both the beer and mead. From the mead side, we've been able to use a lot of the brew tanks, the stout tanks, for both the beer and the mead as we go through the stages. I guess the only difference on the mead side, I make a batch of about 300 gallons, and we ferment that in plastic totes. So mead's a good one just to do the ferment in the tote. And then the unit tanks, I'll use it just for the beer, and also crash in the mead so that the yeast flocculates out. For the most part, it's in a small brewery area that we're able to just basically draw the circle from the raw ingredients. The beer tanks are first, and then the mead from there. And then the other thing we have is the bottling line. Right now, everything is manual. So it's a small shop, but we've got products filled, and we're able to distribute both the beer and the mead to local restaurants, as well as wine stores and things like that. A totally different process, but luckily we're able to use the same equipment for the beer and the mead with just a few exceptions.
Excellent.
Now, Matt, are you doing just cans, or are you cans and bottles?
Cans and bottles. So on the mead side, the traditional mead is all bottled. I have to use a lenticular filter for that, and we go from a filter at 5 different times down to a 0.35 just to make sure all the yeast is out before it goes in the bottle. So that's about the only thing that it's a little bit different. But yep, we have cans for both the beer and the mead, and the mead, traditional mead, comes in bottles.
So a great beverage, but it sounds like a good amount of manual labor going into it.
Yep. Yeah. Same crew does all 3 of them too. So, we've got canning person, bottling person, and then they all help with the brew days as well.
Well, I'm sure your customers appreciate that. Yeah, Traven, do you want to pop in here and
yeah?
Do I have to repeat the question, or I know
you're good. You're good. We're we're kind of the same, like the meads and stuff. We haven't done any bottling or packaging as far as canning yet, but we hope to. But we'll be doing the same filtration process and everything. Really, the only other equipment that we have that we use a little different is we have a coffee cold brew tank that we put 100 pounds of ground up coffee and set it for anywhere from 15 to 24 hours, depending where it's cold crashing, to make our cold brew. Which we have a bigger industrial size grinder to grind up all the fresh whole beans. Our roaster gets twice as much use and twice as much work whenever we do it. Because not only the cold brew that we do currently, but we also do a beer that's about half cold brew and half of like a base cream ale type recipe. So we make the cold brew for it, and then it's batched into a tote, and then when we're ready to brew, it goes into the beer as we're brewing. So it's a little different. And that beer's a little more labor intensive because you got to plan ahead enough to do your coffee a few days in advance and get it. But luckily you don't have to filter the coffee as you do when we're going to kegs or things like that, because it's going to the beer, so it'll drop out.
Right.
So it's a little less work on that side of it, but we've even played with our espresso machines in the brewery and adding some to beers and things just for fun, but haven't done much on that side of it because that gets to pulling a lot of espresso shots, when you start scaling up like that. So, yeah, but for the most part, we make things work and use, we ferment out even our meads when we do them. We ferment them out in the unit tanks, let them finish in there, and go through a little bit of filtration and stuff with them. But, being kegs, we've not ran into much issue with that yet. So,
yeah, it sounds like the majority of you are using mostly the original equipment. Like you said, the pasteurization becomes a huge part of it with the packaging. Requiring a separate piece of equipment, but thanks for sharing all. My next question is, how do you use the beverages aside from beer to attract new customers, maybe even into your beer? Having those other options there, what you're seeing from your customers there, and even demographic. I think one thing I brought up earlier is that you had your age-old loyal beer drinker for forever, and now you have kind of a newer generation that's looking for exciting new flavors, that is looking for always something new. It's a challenge, and a challenge that I think breweries like yourselves are just stepping up to try and handle and keep that segment of the market. So, Phil, you want to pop in?
Sure. I think I saw a lot of the shift starting from the explosion of seltzers and all the fruity flavors, and them mostly being in the 4 to 6% range alcohol wise, and when craft brewers tried to jump on the seltzer train, some of them were successful, some of them not so much, but what they gained out of it was customers that they were able to see the profile of a different beer that the customers wanted to purchase. And so to make their tap list more approachable, they would do lighter styles and do some either fruit infusions or somehow blend in some flavors that were more appealing to a non-traditional beer drinker. And that, kind of has rolled into the diversification of different products available, like all the different flavors that we're getting now with both hard and non-alc kombuchas and so forth. So I blame seltzer.
Excellent. All right. Paul, do you have anything you want to add to that, or is that pretty much sum it up?
I mean, he's pretty much the expert on these things. The only thing I would really add to that is just you saw it did, like he said, it went from seltzer, and then, shortly after you saw kombucha started to really come in. But as Phil was also mentioning earlier, now those same kombucha companies are making their similar product, but rebranding it as like a spiked seltzer or a living seltzer, right? Mm-hmm. Or a hard living seltzer, or some combination of these, words. So I think we are still seeing that evolution grow as they are still expanding, what clients they're catching, and they're evolving to understand what is it that the customer is looking for. And I think at the same time, the customer is still trying to find what it's looking for.
Right.
So there's a bit of a back and forth evolution that is occurring.
I think that's well said. They're still trying to figure out what they're looking for. There's a lot of innovation happening right now, and just trying to keep on top of all that is
what about there's a big trend towards low and non-alcoholic. Are you guys seeing the demand for that? Are you planning for that trend?
For sure. Everyone's heard of Athletic, but there's a handful of breweries that are trying out the non-alc beer. I think it's very similar to when seltzers came out, where there's different methods to do it, and people are trying to figure out where their sweet spot is for their particular brewery. On how to approach these, and same with like the hop waters. Those are growing by leaps and bounds, and so it's just there are a lot of opportunities there for all those different products. The non-alcs, the lower ABVs, whether it's beer or there's non-alc wine and non-alc spirits. So there's lots of there's a big shift towards that, I would say.
Yeah.
And we have gotten requests to see if we could produce those here for clients.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Matt, I think with regards to where you're at, you said you were on the wine trail, right?
Right.
And you said, that your product probably comes along and really works as that entryway. Maybe tell us a little about what you see there with that.
Sure. I think that people are searching. Somebody brought up like diversity in product, and I think that's what helps us, because we sell a lot in the tap room. That's majority of the product base that we sell out the door. While they're here, they'll buy bottles and 6-packs. But what I've noticed is kind of the customers will come in and say, what do you have that's different? Or I was here last month, is there anything new? And so they always want to try something new. And so we try and have that on board. We have our regular cores that are in distribution and that people know and they like those particular ones. So the regulars will come in and drink only one particular brand or product. Other ones come in and, the flights. So they'll come in and try 4 different meads or 4 different beers. And then they'll find one that they like. And we're in a situation where a lot of tourists come up for the Georgia Wine Highway, and I'll have, like imagine a group of church ladies, they're all dressed, they came over from, Sunday Mass, and then they're sitting next to a table with, a group of bikers that are out on the twisty roads as well. So it's real diverse, and they each come and they like the product that they're trying, whether it's the wine, whether it's the beer. What I have noticed is that the trend towards the heavy, high IBU, the strong beer, extreme beers, those don't sell well anymore, at least in this area. So they're going for the lighter ABVs. Our session mead is lightly carbonated and it's 5% alcohol. We tell them it's like an adult juice box, and they light up and they love it. So it pretty much varieties. We recently implemented mead slushies. And so on Thursday night, when the younger crowd comes in and plays trivia, slushies are going, just like crazy. So we've got mead slushies now, and they want to know what are the flavors, what's new on that one. So we try and give them various choices that they can have, as well as the cores that they know are always around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine that during the heat that you're experiencing down there. Yep. It's got to be just a big hit. So awesome.
They light up. Yep.
Thanks, Matt. Traven?
Yeah, we're kind of the same as Matt was saying. We're a pretty big tourist area, and we get tons of people coming ATV riding, hiking, scenic byways, all that. So we get a big diversity of it, and we get a lot of people that come in the morning, find out we have coffee, really good coffee, and then they're excited to find out that we have beer, food, everything. So I mean, we get a huge diversity from it, and we have. I think it helps having a lot of the different stuff, because we get people that come in at lunch for business meetings, and sit down and have coffees and lemonades and teas and stuff. But then they enjoy it so much, they'll come back that afternoon or, the weekend or something and have a beer, watch performers, things like that. So we see a bunch of that. We don't see as much of the, like the low ABV stuff. The stuff like sub 5% will sit on our wall 10 times longer than an 8 or 9, which, we kind of always figured would be the opposite. But, like you can't go wrong. Your light lagers, things like that, like those always move pretty well, long as they're good ones that we've done. But yeah, our stouts and our porters are probably the most consistent, not the most movement, but they always stay consistent, even summer, winter. We started doing a while back some like hard lemonades. We released one a few months ago that's Carney Man. It's a cotton candy lemonade that's about 6%, and we can't make enough of it to keep up with hardly, much less when we start canning. Because we just installed some 15-barrel fermenters to help with that, hopefully. But yeah, we see a huge diversity in there, and have people that come in and, even that don't drink or anything, but yet they can still come in and get coffee with, their friend and sit down with it while they have a beer or things like that. So we see a lot of it, and you never know what's going to be the thing that day or that week. So it's just trying to keep up and stay with it, and hopefully figure it out and stay ahead and have enough.
Well, it sounds like you're getting them at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, which is
great. We're open from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, 6 days a week.
Nice.
At least. So
thank you, Draven. Going back to what Phil said, he blames it all on seltzer. I have to admit, when seltzers first came out, I was researching and looking, at least in my state, trying to read a document that explained the legalities of seltzer and what licensing you needed in order to do it. And I was more confused after reading it than when I first started, especially since it talks about where the sugars are derived and how you have to have 50% of your sugars coming from grain or fruit, or if you're not sure, then you have to get a distiller's license. All sorts of different things that are involved in it. But I think it brings up the question of you all are pioneers getting involved in multiple craft beverages, keeping the masses happy with different flavors. How hard was the navigation of your legalities there with your state? I know each state is drastically different. I mean, going to Matt's situation, saying, oh, it took an extra 2 years. Just hearing a little bit from each of you on what you've gone through, what you foresee as maybe your state's going to change, because these beverages are becoming more and more popular. They can't make it so hard for people to get involved with them. So same order. I'll start with Phil.
Yeah, it is to navigate just the licensing process alone, let alone what you're allowed to do with each license, is a lot to ask. We have a really active guild that is, I mean, we're in San Francisco, so that's fairly close to Sacramento, where the state guild is also housed. So we have a good relationship with the CCBA. Our guild has over 150 breweries involved, and the knowledge base there, if someone doesn't know the answer, the CCBA is, very helpful. But yeah, it's a web that you gotta get through, and knowing exactly what you can do. In California, we are fairly easy to, the alcohol industry is fairly easy to navigate. We've got a lot of benefits and opportunities that other states just, I don't know how they exist without, I don't know how we would exist without the opportunities that we have through our licenses. And being in another state, that would be very hard. Yeah, so it's a constant conversation with your associations that you're with, whether that's on a regional level, a state level, and even the national level. And the big push out here is to get equal rights that a winery can do for the different industries. So it's like wineries, for example, the California wineries, it was just inherent with their license that they could have direct to consumer shipping. Mm-hmm. It's been a battle for breweries to be able to do that. It took a pandemic for it to really push forward. So instances like that. And then the what types of beverages you can produce under what license. There was a lot of breweries that were, I think at a conference, the ABC said that they did like not really an operation to get people in trouble, but they just did basically a survey operations up and down the state, where I believe they visited close to 150 breweries, and about 120 of them were using fruit in their beers that they weren't allowed to do. Like it's an automatic $10,000 fine if they wanted to do it. But they were doing a fact-finding mission to figure out, is it something that what the breweries are talking about of not being able to produce cider, is it a real thing? And obviously, with the passing of the bill that allows breweries to do ciders beginning in January, it was a real thing.
Yeah, and I might chime in on that. The brewery I worked at, early days cider, we had contemplated doing a separate facility just for the cider. In the end, the idea was that area would change into a distribution cooler area for warehousing. We were still able to utilize alternating premise in order to do cider, but you had to take a picture of it entirely through the entire process, document it stringently in order to make sure that that they knew what was being taxed, how. It was a very time-consuming process. So to see some of those laws evolve and hopefully become easier for these cross-beverage opportunities for brewers, for meaderies, for wineries, for everyone, I think is a great thing. So excellent. Paul, do you want to add to any of that or no?
I mean, Phil covered that really in depth. Yeah, I think he did a really great job. The only other thing I would really add to that is with it growing, the TTB, the ABC, and these guilds, what I have found interesting about all of these networks is that they're all in it together. So they all know each other very well. The TTB, the ABC, and the brewers guilds and associations, they all know each other, and they're all pulling for the same thing. And I thought that it was very interesting to find that the people who you're calling, who are supposed to be, regulating this, are also, really working side by side with you to actually figure out how to accomplish what you're out to do inside of the regulation. And they're part and parcel, sometimes even kind of discovering or figuring out for themselves how the law actually works, as written, as lived, are two different things. And so it's not this lumbering bureaucracy above you that is out to prevent you from, doing anything, at least not here in California, from what I've seen. Yeah. They're side by side with you.
Yeah. And I've seen that. The regional one for the Northwest has been very helpful. It might change geographically where you're at, but I think the ultimate goal is that they are there to help you, and hopefully you have a good relationship with them. Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Matt.
All right. I mentioned a licensing issue that came from the very beginning. We're still having that, but this one's in the city. We opened up a restaurant and wanted to serve our beer, and the city did not know how to license us as a manufacturer. If we wanted to sell basically as a retail, they had that. But as a manufacturer of beer, it's been more difficult recently. So that's our current dilemma we're still going under. I will point out that one of the biggest things is since we're a brewery and a meadery, we have a farm license and a brewing license. For everything I do on the mead side, I have a sales guy that can literally self-distribute it to local restaurants, to liquor stores. So as a farm winery, the state of Georgia, I should preface that. So this is Georgia, and it's a 3-tier system. But on the farm winery side, the state of Georgia allows you to self-distribute as a farm winery. So I can take kegs to restaurants. I can have them take 6-packs. We can take bottles. We've got it at all the local stores on the mead side. That same keg that sits next to a beer keg that my team still does on the same equipment that we make the mead, I have to run that through a distributor. And the distributor is about 30, 40 miles away, and he's delivering to a restaurant that's 2 miles from us. So it's a little bit backwards. Same kegs, one hand I can do the mead, the other one I got to hand to a distributor, and then you get the markup and then the delays and everything else. So it's a constant struggle. The guild has been trying to do the Georgia Brewers Guild. We sat down with our, actually the Senate Majority Leader, and told them, hey, this is what our problem is all up and down the northern part of the state that he specifically represents in Georgia. We've had the same thing where little breweries are popping up in small rural towns, and the distributor has to come from a major metropolitan area to pick up their beer to deliver it in a local restaurant. So challenging still continues. We even had one local brewery that moved to Tennessee, just over the border. So it was close enough for him that he can bypass the Georgia 3-tier system and get somewhere where it's easier for him because it is distributing a lot. Hopefully the Georgia laws will change soon on that.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot, that there is new legislature being put in, especially in the Southeast. I was recently in South Carolina, very similar situation where they're pushing in order to get these self-distribution for small breweries. It's very hard for a small brewery to get involved in the distribution game to begin with, let alone with prohibitive laws going against it. So we can only hope that they evolve and allow you guys to eventually self-distribute.
Well, now, Matt, you said you had to wait quite a while to get the brewing license. Was that ever a thought that maybe you wouldn't get it? And did you have like a contingency plan?
No, it was always just part of it. The original founder, started with home brewing, and just like a lot of people are like, I can home brew, I can do this commercially. So he really wanted to start with that, but he needed the source of income for the equipment and things. So it was always on the mind. It just took the state of Georgia a little bit to get that. So we're going to go through with it, become a brewery. Same thing with the restaurant. We're just going to continue on, having people try to change what is, in this case, the city ordinances to allow us to sell there. But there's always a plan. In fact, I think some of you mentioned like distilling licenses. So in the back of our minds, that'll be the next thing that we do as well. But we've got a lot of stuff to tackle right now. So we'll be doing the distilling it in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Traven.
Yeah.
You want to chime in on this one? And then I'd like to hopefully leave the last 10 minutes for one more question for y'all.
For sure. Yeah. When we initially started the brewery side, it was a nightmare because it was brand new legislation that no one knew. It was just kind of someone wrote it up and it wasn't wrote up great. And we were the first ones to get all our ducks in a row and get it started. So we were the first dry county private club microbrewery restaurant in the state. So when we were dealing with like the ABC and stuff, we're like, hey, can we do this? And they're like, no. Well, I don't know. Or they'd say, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, your rules here say that we can. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. So we had a lot of back and forth like that. I mean, they worked with us great, and we got it figured out eventually. But since we went wet, we had a really smooth, easy transition to, a real microbrewery now. And Arkansas has recently passed legislation to allow microbreweries to do RTDs and to self-distribute also up to 5,000 barrels a year. And that actually takes effect like tomorrow, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Today or tomorrow. And so we can distribute to all of our local restaurants, liquor stores, gas stations, things like that. Which before, with it and having to go through distribution, we have a restaurant just across the street, like literally just across the street from us, that if they wanted one of our kegs, it had to go on a truck with a distributor, go an hour and a half away, be put at their warehouse, come back an hour and a half, and then be sold to them, when I can walk across the road in 3 minutes with it, So that was a bunch of the headache with it, which that's been changed now. Finally goes into effect with the self-distro also. And plus, with us being in such a rural area, we just don't get much or see much help currently. And with just going to a wet county, that made a huge difference. We actually have distributors coming to us now instead of us having to chase them. But the legal side of it has been challenging, to say the least, because we're still in the process of trying to figure out with the RTDs what we can even do, how we have to go about it. If are we able to distill, or do we just have to bring totes of stuff in, or how that's going to play out in the future. And we're a ways from doing that, but we're just trying to get that figured out legally, how we have to go about doing that. So that's kind of our current hurdles and things, but
having that you have great opportunity there. So
yeah,
hopefully that'll be easy to navigate when the time comes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got about 10 minutes left. I just wanted to get each one of you up, maybe talking about these craft beverages, these new and exciting flavors. Maybe you had to learn a little something. Maybe there was a product that you thought was going to be real difficult that actually isn't very hard. What is real quick, maybe 2 minutes each, the easiest product that you've done that maybe you thought was hard, and then your favorite, maybe, like, what is the most attractive product that you have right now that people are going for? So, Bill.
Oh, I would say the easiest product. It's definitely not my favorite product. The easiest product is seltzer.
Right.
That That is, yeah, you can knock out 300 barrels of seltzer in 8 hours. It'd be quite easy. Favorite product is taking like delicate styles, like a rustic saison or something, and barrel aging it, and seeing that product evolve over the time. Like like making like a Solera project out of it or something, where you start with one barrel with some microbes in it, and each year you drain that barrel, and then the dregs, you drain it to about like 10 gallons left, and 5 gallons goes into the next barrel, and it inoculates, and you keep on going down the line. Each year you have a anniversary beer and something fun that evolves, and it can point back to a certain time, like whether it was the first beer you brewed, or something for your anniversary, or whatever it is. Those are the type of projects that I like.
That's cool. Yeah, and I'm sure that barrel aged saison imparts a very high level of sophistication for the wine drinking crowd in the area where you're at, out in the Napa
sure.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
So very neat. All right, excellent. I'm going to move on here. Matt.
Okay. I guess the easiest thing is just a standard beer with Kveik yeast. I mean, that one's quick, easy, get it done. And then I wanted to go into what we do with the barrel aging, because that one's caused it's caused problems in the past, but it's also been huge sellers. We have the anniversary coming up in October, so we try and release 2 beers, 2 meads. We've got a peach cobbler barrel aging mead, Granny's apple that's aging in apple brandy barrels, and those require some attention to it. It's also one where you have to keep on top of the flavor profiles and make sure that it's doing what you want it to do. One of the things that we enjoy doing, it requires some collaboration, but we partnered with a local tourist chocolate place and made what we call Happy Camper. It's toasted marshmallows. It's like a s'mores beer, using that local chocolatiers product. And so it ties together the small little town where they can go and buy chocolate from him, and then the beer that we do once a year with as well. But I think the barrel aging, we had at least one where it picked up off flavors, and the beer just didn't do well and to dump it. We've all experienced that. So those are kind of the difficult things usually in the barrel aging process. The other thing that we like to do is, creativity with the slushy machines. I have got college kids that work here that I give them the ability just to come up with a recipe, be creative, and it kind of covers all generations, and those have been a big seller. So creativity is the fun part as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. I think that's an important thing, bringing in a larger diverse group, letting them get involved in it, I think is huge for that. You never know where your next flavor is going to come from. Traven.
Yeah, our easiest and probably like prettiest that kind of draws people's attention is the cotton candy hard lemonade, because it's super bright pink, and it's one of those, if you're at a festival or something and you pour one, people are coming over and like, I want the bright pink stuff. That's it, and that was one we come up with. It was just something we're like, you know what, let's throw cotton candy at this and see what it does. And then it just took off.
Draven, I'm so stealing that for a mead flavor. I wrote it down already.
Hey, go for it. It has done phenomenal. And it's super easy. And that's, it's basically a seltzer. So, like Phil said, you can crank those out easy. It's not my favorite to make, but that's the one that, stays consistent and does a lot and pays the bills. So we'll go with it. Awesome. Some of our hardest one is probably our rise and grind, which is the half cold brew and half beer. And it's not necessarily difficult. It's just because of the amount of cleaning and prep time and things like that, roasting and grinding and setting up the cold brew, cleaning those tanks, everything like that. We've done a few barrel age things. We haven't got into that a whole lot. That's kind of one of our hopes for the future, is to get a good barrel program going and stuff. But yeah, the ones where we just do something wild, you know, we use a bunch of the Kveiks. It's one of my favorites just because it's so aggressive and hardy. And you don't have to worry about it near as much. So we use that in several beers just because it throws some really cool flavors and stuff. And we do a lot of playing and mixing and just kind of seeing what comes out and if it's good or not, and if it sells or not. Mostly if we like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you all are working very hard to keep those flavors exciting. And I do appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to contribute to this talk. I want to thank Craft Beer Professionals for having us on. The content is just wonderful. Having a forum like this where we can exchange ideas and just have discussions like this, and all the sponsors who bring about this content. So thank you all again. I appreciate all of your input.
Thanks, everybody.
And, I don't know. Hopefully, we're going to have to do the tour, and if I ever find myself in any of your areas, I'm going to have to taste these wonderful drinks that you're talking about. Cotton candy out in Arkansas. You know, we got those barrel aged saisons out in the Bay Area, and you know, with the peach cobbler anniversary style that we're going to have out there in the wonderful peach state. So, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate all your help. And
thank y'all.
See you all again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.